Hello, I'm Daniel O'Brien, the creative director of video at Crack.com, author of books, and guy who so far hasn't been convicted of any crime, though not for lack of trying. If you're an adult American, there's a 33% chance that you've been arrested, and if you've been arrested in the past decade, someone official likely took your picture. It's this cute thing we do. And if that happened to you, there's a good chance that that picture, your mugshot, is currently on display in the virtual rogues gallery we call the internet. Police stations take pictures of people who get arrested. That's true. The internet exists and is terrible, and that's also true. The combination of these three truths bring us to the terrible present with mugshot websites. Mugshot websites scrape police and sheriff databases and republish all their booking photos. It's kind of a cottage industry that's popped up thanks to cheap domain registration and liberal state sunshine laws of each state that govern public access to government records. If you've got decent coding skills and a tolerance for ethical gray areas, you too can throw together a website that aggregates snapshots of humiliation. The site owners justify all this by citing public safety, claiming that by publishing booking photos, they're ensuring greater transparency with law enforcement and somehow providing criminal justice through synergy? Or, as Arthur D'Antonio III, owner of JustMugshots.com, put it to a Southern California radio host,
so our value really is for the greater public to be able to access this stuff. Much of what we have on our site, you'd actually have to go to the courthouse and request the information in person. And so that's kind of the value proposition that we feel we provide.
Yeah, value. Do we have a clip? Do we have a clip of that greater public value that's been provided? There it is. The internet was a mistake. And anyway, any alleged benefit that we as a society could get from the free publication of mugshot photos is far outweighed by the sheer amount of damage they do. Even if your charges were dropped, a single photo of your arrest has the power to destroy relationships, goodwill with your landlord, and job prospects. Well, with one notable exception. But booking photos don't tell the whole story. For one thing, clerical error leads to wrongful arrest all the time. Or consider the 1.2 million people arrested on drug charges each year on the strength of cheap field tests that have been shown to give false positives up to a third of the time. And then charges just get dismissed. Not every arrest leads to conviction, and having a mugshot doesn't make a person a monster. You and I know that right now, but you and I knowing that doesn't change the internet and doesn't change the fact that an easily Googleable mugshot is an easily Googleable mugshot, and if someone says my name is X and I'd like a job or a loan, you will be suspicious if you Google X and immediately see a mugshot. Being arrested at all carries the kind of stigma that drives down income level and adds another barrier to home ownership. If you've yet to finish college or even high school when you get booked, your chance of doing so suddenly takes a dive. Mugshots lack context. Take Will, a mugshot having person we actually talked to. He was arrested 5 times in a 2-year period, each time while in the throes of a mental health crisis.
I was only vaguely aware that I was being arrested. The first thing that I thought of when I arrived at the jail was that I was in a time machine. I just remember I endured an enormous ordeal. I remember going to jail and having the people in the jail say, "You again, huh?" Because I'd been arrested about 4 times in a week.
He's doing well now. His charges were all eventually dismissed, and I, Daniel O'Brien, would trust him to watch my beloved dog. Just try telling that to the internet. In total, 30 different mugshot websites displayed his booking photos 74 times. Not a single one of those websites mentioned that his charges had been dropped. Why? Because public humiliation is a cash cow. Of the 30 websites where Will found his mugshot, 4 charged removal fees in excess of $100 per mugshot. One charged a jaw-dropping $399 for single removal because I guess they thought a clean $400 would have been outrageous. And there were other sites and services that charged different rates. Now, I would never be so cruel as to force anyone to do research or math, so I've done it for you. In total, if Will wanted to scrape every instance of his mugshot from the internet and decided to pay up at all the websites that required it, he would have been out $1,393. I don't want to repeat myself too much here, but that's $1,393 that someone who hasn't been convicted of a single crime would have to pay to get their booking photo removed from the internet. A person in the middle of a mental health crisis who was trying to have the pictures removed because its existence was hurting their ability to get a job. And if Will did decide to throw money at the problem, he most likely would have had to do it through Bitcoin or another alternative method. After the New York Times reached out to payment processors like PayPal, Visa, Discover, and American Express, asking about their complicity in what is essentially extortion, all those companies agreed to drop mugshot websites as clients on ethical grounds. If you pay me, I will do the right thing ethically. Let that sink in for a moment. But Will decided not to pay. He decided to tackle the problem on his own because he's lucky to live in one of the 12 states with some kind of mugshot-related law on the books. And it's gone well. Kind of. Under Oregon law, mugshot websites are required to remove your booking photo at your request if you can prove your charges have been dismissed, and they have to do it within 30 days for free. But as Mugshot Barry of pdxmugshots.com was only too happy to point out, that only works on websites that charge for removal, or rather, that blatantly charge for removal. Turns out there's more than one way to turn other people's arrests into profit. There's advertising, which is PDX Mugshot's game. Good to have a fallback revenue model when your customer base tends to be short on cash, because their arrest details are so public that it's hard for them to find decent jobs. 12 of the sites that ran Will's mugshot offered to sell his background report to him or anyone else who was interested. One site, bizarrely, offered to sell his original mugshots at $1.99 a pop for like scrapbooking, I guess. After 2 months, Will was able to get some of his mugshots removed from 21 different websites. That's 2 months once again. But 9 sites still haven't budged. One site has yet to respond in any way. You're a normal human, so I know what you're thinking. You're thinking if he did nothing wrong and the law exists, everything should be fine. Well, why don't we take a big breath together. With the law on his side, Will could resubmit all his requests via certified mail, wait 30 days, make a list of all those who didn't respond, probably lawyer up, then argue that by stonewalling him, those sites and their owners are engaging in unlawful trade practice in the state of Oregon. Under state law, he could eventually collect damages, most of which would just cover attorney's fees, with very little left over to make up for the lost earning power of having his mugshot hovering out there for all to see. Ladies and gentlemen, America. But, you know, he shouldn't have to. Also, it is notoriously difficult to track down the actual owners of these sites. Almost all of them make their domain registration info private, and some don't even bother to provide a valid email address. Consider what the team at Fusion went through trying to trace the owner of mugshots.com earlier this year.
On their website, they say they're owned and operated by Julki Sudesa in Nevis, West Indies. I searched domain registrations, corporate filings, court records, and couldn't find any company by that name. I did find that the website was registered in Belize. So let me get this straight. Mugshots.com is owned by a company with a Finnish name, incorporated in Nevis, West Indies, and registered in Belize?
Punchline, it's actually operated from Florida. Most of the websites Will dealt with weren't quite that shady. Some of them were actually quite responsive. It quickly became clear that the entire industry, without exception, is incestuous, like a big network connected by subterranean Lovecraftian tentacles. Take the dozen of seemingly unaffiliated websites that replied to Will's removal request with identical emails and which appear to employ the same customer service rep. Identical serial numbers in Will's mugshot URLs indicated that these 12 sites were using the same photo database. Court records from a class action lawsuit show that these two are owned by the same guy, and that another guy owns these. You get the idea. It makes sense from a business perspective. Set up as many mugshot websites as possible, cross-post the hell out of each mugshot, profit. Sidebar, I think the ease and understanding with which we employ "it makes sense" from a business perspective these days is deeply troubling, because it implies on our part a tacit complicity in a system where practices that we all acknowledge to be inherently unfair and morally bankrupt are okay because business as a concept exists in a separate plane divorced from any sense of decency, where making the most money at the fastest pace and most consistent rate trumps literally everything else. But that's not the point of this episode, so end of sidebar, but think about it. Anyway, that's $1,393 estimate we mentioned earlier. That was on the low side. There's another industry that profits from arrest-related embarrassment: online reputation management. These guys promise to do the dirty work for you. Why not just take the DIY approach yourself? It's cheaper, and there's nothing esoteric about what these companies promise to do. Take internetreputation.com's method. Step 1. Identify images and information that you need removed. Well, that's just masturbatory deep Googling, maybe with an Excel spreadsheet in the mix. Easy. And step 3 looks intimidating. De-indexing residual links from search engines sounds like a battle of wills between man and machine, but in fact, it simply means telling Google to purge dead links that used to point to where your mugshot was. Quick copy and paste, not exactly a trade secret. But step 2 is where this whole snake-like industry starts to gorge on its own tail to the point of asphyxiation, because there are basically 2 proven techniques sites like these use. 1, many are owned by the same people who own many of the major mugshot websites. Yeah, it's pretty easy for them to eliminate negative information. They probably use the same login. In most cases, it's tough to prove this connection. Here's an example. When Will sent a removal request to countyjail.com, he almost immediately received an unsolicited email from erasemugshots.com offering him a complete removal solution. Erase Mugshots claimed to have acquired Will's email address by purchasing leads through a third party. But when you click on the Remove Your Online Information button on countyjail.com, it redirects you to this. Unprompted, EraseMugshots.com sent another email, this one with a cost estimate. They promised to make every single one of Will's mugshots disappear in 7 days for a one-time fee of, and if you appreciate fun physical bits, this would be a good time to start sipping a drink so that you can then comically spit out $8,650. That's about $234 per link, which is higher than many of these websites charge directly. But with a complete removal solution like this one, you're not just paying the individual removal costs, you're also paying for Erase Mugshot's connections. So that's one proven technique. The other is that many reputation management websites have sweetheart deals with the Mugshot websites they aren't owned by. In a 2013 interview with Wired, Arrests.org owner Rob Wiggin explained how he provided one reputation management company with a special URL it could use to automatically remove any mugshot for only $9.95 per request. Wiggin verified that this is common industry practice. All of this demonstrates that mugshot websites, even the ones that don't blatantly charge for removal, have a lot of incentive to make removals as difficult as possible, allowing them to keep your info up until you hire a supposed middleman to ask for you, gouging customers to fill a need you yourself created. What does this remind me of?
And we merchants have found you really should have some round-the-clock security here.
Isn't that what the police are for?
They do their best, but they got their hands full.
Well, how do you think corporate would feel if, for the sake of argument, someone threw a brick through your window?
What if, God forbid, it wasn't just vandalism? What if an employee, even the managers say, was assaulted?
Oh, right, the mob. The subtle threatening dealings of the American mafia is what it reminded me of. It's so obvious, I don't know why I blanked. But even if every single mugshot website stuck to clean business practices, there's another problem here. There's a civil rights argument for making mugshots public record. It keeps you from getting disappeared by a shady police state. Mugshots are a necessary evil of an open justice system, but there's a difference between booking information popping up on a background check and it being volunteered on the first page of your search results. Data scientist Hillary Mason suggests the checks and balances value of some friction and cost to getting at booking photos, so that it's no longer economically feasible to run these sorts of aggregated extortion sites. You know, like making someone physically go to the police station to submit a request for this information, rather than just drawing on the endless data dump most law enforcement agencies offer for free. Because imagine if any black marks on, say, your credit report came up whenever someone Googled you. They don't. They come up on credit reports you consent to, in a centralized database where, if you find a mistake, you have a fighting chance of correcting it. After all this, Will has had a 55% success rate getting his mugshots removed. But this is in a state where lawmakers have weighed in to say that profiteering from someone's brush with the law, regardless of outcome, is not okay. Only another 8 states are even considering that idea on a formal level. A lot of critics throw their hands in the air and say that fighting the titans of mugshot publishing at this stage in the game is like trying to put the genie back in the bottle. That's simply not true. Law enforcement agencies take this information down within days of arrest. There's only a finite number of places where this information pops up. And if you can compel site owners to remove your information and occasionally nudge Google to de-index those old links, it is quite possible to return your online presence to its pre-arrest purity. But there's more money in telling people it's futile, and there is money to be made by discouraging people with less tenacity, energy, or time. You know, people who might be a bit gun-shy about the court system, which is likely most people whose mugshot is in wide circulation. But it's okay, because it's just business. Hey everyone, thank you for watching this. I know it was long and light on jokes, but it's an important subject that we care about here at the site. Sandra Sorensen has another article about the same subject on Crack. We'll put a link down there so you can check it out and see if you can write your congressman. Go to your congressman's websites and like and subscribe and comment about how they should fix the government. And also like and subscribe to our channel and tell us how to fix our government.